Thank you very much indeed. I am truly humbled. I think before going any further, I'd like to um, offer some special congratulations to Leslie. Leslie's been tireless, and his organization, the African Sports Ventures Group, along with his chairman, Game, have done an extraordinary job as they try to promote the greatness of Africa in different ways and in different forms. So I think it's important. And as with all events, it's important that we remember the people who are not seen. There are lots of people behind the scenes who are spending time and precious effort tirelessly bringing this together. And although I don't know them, I've heard of some of them. Occasionally when I speak to Leslie, I think it's important that everybody recognize the importance of all of these people. I think in addition to this, the Women's Sports Africa Network group as well, we need to extend thanks to. Interestingly enough, there are many, many more people that are involved that one has to stretch out and say a big thank you to. I find it actually interesting. I've got a very short time, which is appropriate. I felt humbled when I was asked to even speak, because for an event like this, on a day like this, the Pan-African Women's Day, 31st of July, set up in 1962 in Tanzania, where the current president of Tanzania happens to be a lady, itself is momentous. As we look across Africa, we see in Mauritius, we see in Namibia, we see leaders who are also women. It is a special day. I think that the opening little video says a lot. There is no need to really go in and mention all of the women because they come in different forms at different levels. Clearly, we all know, because we have some from all of our countries. And as I traverse the world, I'm always very quick to tell everybody that the greatest continent on earth is Africa. 1.4 billion people of what I believe to be the greatest athletes on earth. In my sport, the double world champions are from South Africa. And we can see across the continent how the growth of the game and the excellence that is exuded from it continues. But I think that as we go on, it's very easy to talk about the structures that are there and that we need to improve. But for those of you, and I take it it's the vast majority, who will actually have no knowledge as to who I am, unless you really like rugby. And I do tell people it is the greatest game on earth, and perhaps the second biggest outside of American sports on earth. I am somebody who just lives for and believes in womanhood. As I said at my office here in Accra, where I am today, the only pictures I have in my office are that of women. I have an extraordinary mother who is 89, who taught me value systems, which guide me in life today. My grandmother passed some years ago. She was 100, the strongest woman that I know. Her elder sister, I loved most dearly, and I'm lucky enough to have 4 daughters who I've brought up with that value system, the value system which says that they need to believe in themselves. They never need to give up. They need to keep dreaming. There is no limit to where it is they can go and how they can develop. I was recently in Hong Kong with World Rugby, and I had to address some 16 and 18-year-olds who were passing out, and they'd asked the executive board to all say a few words. And when it came to me, I explained it was about them, it's not about me. And that's a critical thing that I want to reach out, and I want women to understand that it is about them. The world has changed. You are empowered, and I believe that you are incredibly smart as a people. Don't be held back by the norms that people say you can or you can't or whatever else may be. And as an example, my offices in Africa are run by women. One by a single mother Muslim lady, another by an extraordinary lady. I don't know whether I'm allowed to mention their names. But as I move into Rugby Africa has been developed off the backbone of incredibly strong women. We have had 2 general managers, one current, who is a lady, Maha, And the lady who started it all, Coralie, is an incredibly strong lady. These are women of massive talent. And they've opened the door and brought the argument and led the discourse to the point in time where we've had to bring about changes in the structure of where we go. And the structures have seen us to this point now where we're looking at constitutional reform. This morning, my main discussion was with the two ladies. How can we change it and make women even more inclusive? If we say we're setting a benchmark of 40% women to be on the board as part of our constitutional reform, how many unions in Africa have women as presidents or are prepared to nominate them? Do we need to look the way that World Rugby has gone, where we have independence? And I sit on the board, executive board, and I'm humbled because I always sit with Sue Carty on my left, who has been involved in officiating and that such like in terms of rugby, and now she chairs boards within World Rugby for that. I look across and there's Louise, and Louise is the director of finance at Formula One Racing, Williams team, and now heads the audit and risk at World Rugby. On my right, I've always got Melody Robinson, who is a top broadcaster and a captain of the Black Ferns. We have Angela Ruggieri, who's a double Olympian and knows more about fan engagement than anybody that I know. There's Denise, who represents the Live Golf structures. The point I'm making is there's excellence in womanhood everywhere, and we need to open the door for them to come in. There are men who are at the helm of businesses who've got to open the door. One of my battles in Rugby Africa has been to persuade my board, my exco, that the excellence of women is that we need to set a target. We can talk about the wording to make sure that we get to a 40% mark. Mark Alexander, who's the president of SARU, a president who I have massive respect for as the most successful of the tier one rugby nations, has independence on his board. And they are smart, smart, smart women. So as we go forward and as we protect and as we grow, we're happy to be at the forefront. And I know that Rugby Africa ranks very highly in terms of the IOC rankings in terms of governance across the board. It's only a year ago or so, and I must be corrected on my time being an old man, that we introduced safeguarding into as part of what we do in Rugby Africa. And the women who are on the board of safeguarding are massive. They are strong. They involve some of the ladies I've mentioned, but it's actually chaired by a man, my vice president, Nasser. There is a collaboration between the two of us, men and women, that can drive and provide a platform to go forward. But we will not bring about change unless we get people who are open-minded. I came in as I was rightly introduced 2 years ago. My mantra was then, as it is now, as it will be in the future, that sport is big business. A recognition that sport is big business. The only way that we reach where we reach, where we're sitting in an ecosystem of some $15 billion a year on the continent, rising to 20, 25 billion in the next 10, 15 years, is that we do need a mindset change. We can't have the best athletes in the world who are now traversing applying their trade in Europe and America, where people sit behind television screens or pay $200 or $500 to attend a sports encounter in America, and the revenues therefore go back in. We have the raw material. And as I always say, we have to move from the point where it is that we produce the cocoa, but we don't have the factories to make the chocolate, or we've got the gold, but we don't have the refineries. And I believe that women play a massive role in this, in harnessing that basic talent that we have. And we men, the institutions, other women, must learn to start working together for the greater good. Africa has excellence, and the excellence for me is embodied in terms of women. As I look around, as I said at my desk, all I see are the beautiful faces. They happen to be of my daughters, by the way, and of my wife. But I have such belief in their abilities to succeed and apply themselves in the world of sports as administrators, as I've explained, as general managers, as head of risk and audit, all the way up to the point where we now have presidents, ministers, and deputy ministers of sport. Without dragging on too much, because I am looking at the clock at how much time I've got, I encountered, just to give an example, the deputy minister when I was in Uganda, and I said, as we were talking about governance in Africa and the challenges, I said it would help if we actually looked at the constitutions, not of rugby, but of the land. How do we look at that to change it in a way that we simply don't take somebody per region, but we also look at ways to positively encourage women and womanhood into the sporting arena and then protect them so that in terms of governance, we don't only look at our extraordinary general secretary at FIFA or what Kirsty has done at the IOC that makes us all proud as Africans, but we actually have people who are now coming and running and owning clubs and running sporting institutions and are now part of the system, not just because they're women, but because they're the best people available, who more often than not, in my view, happen to be women. I would hope from this extraordinary webinar that Leslie's put together that there will be the chance for discourse, for dialogue. And even though I've just got this little slot, I am available, as Leslie will tell you, if anybody wants to sidebar at any point in the future, at any time, for discussions as to how can we grow our game? How can we get north, east, west, south together to create this massive organization, which is a continent, 1.4 billion people, harness a fan base within it of 50 million, 100 million, that actually is committed to sports, not necessarily football or rugby or basketball, but it is committed in such a way that big business and money recognizes the value of the African, recognizes the need to invest so that we can simultaneously turn our eyes across to the banks and call them out, as I have done before, and gone to big banks, the ADBs, and said, if we can get money from AFD in France, why can't we get it from an African bank? Why do we go elsewhere for it when you're actually here? Have a belief, invest in us. Your banks will grow, you will make money. Our children will also be able to get a career and apply the trade here in Africa rather than going out. It doesn't stop. And I think I better stop there, Leslie, because I'm taking up other people's time. But I hope you can all feel my passion, my belief, my love in womanhood, and the belief that Africa can only develop. Yes, if you feed and educate a woman, you actually develop a whole country and possibly a continent. Thank you.